here, the Scrapbooking Photographer. Welcome to this episode of Mad About Minis. As some of you who have been following along might realise, I am putting together an album for my husband to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary, which is happening next March, so that's March 2025. I am gradually working my way through it. I've done some events that stuck out in my mind quite clearly, and I've also done the second to last page, but I thought it was time to start filling in some gaps, and so I want to start with the title page. So our first celebratory album goes through to 25 years, and this photo was the first one that I've got of both of us after the end of that album. So I'm going to use that as a starting point. And the sketch that we had earlier this month for Mix It Up Monday, I thought would work perfectly for that. So I'm going to downsize that to a 6x8 today. And I'm not sure that this is the second page, so I'm going to do it on a separate piece of cardstock. And the mini pads I'm going to use are from Kaisercraft. So they're 6.5 inches, and they've got lots of different shades of black, and they're slightly pinky in places, but there's plenty to work with that isn't. So given that we've both got black jackets on here, I thought we'd mix it with basically black and white things in here. The first thing I need to do obviously is the strip of something down here. So we'll get started with that and see how it works, reducing the pattern to this size. My next video on this pattern, I want to do a third one as well, will be making a card. So keep watching, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, push subscribe and the little bell today so that you'll get notified when that video comes up as well. So then we'll have 3 videos, the 12x12, 6x8 and the card, all from the same sketch, which is pretty cool. All right, let's see how we go. So the first thing you'll notice is that this photo is landscape perspective, whereas in the sketch it is portrait perspective. So we're going to have a little bit less room for different things. And the other thing to notice is that the paper from the paper pack is 6.5. So when you're working with mini papers, of course, you have to be a little bit inventive if you end up with joins. I was going to do something with this embossed paper, but I'm actually going to go with this instead, and I might do both of them. This one has got lots of lovely sayings about couples, great for the two of us, so that's going to be my main piece down there. But as you can see, with it only measuring 6.5 inches long, it doesn't reach the full length of the page. So I've trimmed it down to 2 inches wide, and I'll trim the black embossed piece to a little bit wider to give us about 1/4 of an inch at the top and the bottom. And I'll trim both the black and white piece and the black embossed piece to come up from the bottom and down from the top with that same sort of gap around the outside. So eventually it will look like a framed banner going down the left-hand side of the page. And of course I'll find something to cover that gap to make it look seamless. But before I do that, I'm just choosing the piece of paper to go in the background. Now in the sketch, this has a notebook look across the top, but I'm just tearing it as I don't have a punch that does a notebook look. But I will add a little bit of a highlight with some ink later to highlight it more against the white background. So now I'm flicking through the pad looking for 2 things. One, for something to make the tag that will go behind the photo, and secondly for something to fill in the gap on the left hand side. So there's 2 little sayings on this cut apart page that was at the back of the pad, and this one that's black I think will look the best, but I'll need to highlight it with something between it and the embossed paper just to continue that theme of the light against the dark as well. So after fiddling about seeing how this is going to look when it all comes together, I then decide to go back to that cut apart page and see if there's any tags there, and I find 2 contenders. One is just the tip of a tag and the other is a whole tag. So I'll have a go with both of them, and I quite like the size of the bigger tag more, and I'll try it first by cutting the top off and putting that at the top, and then putting the bottom down the bottom. It doesn't really work on the side there, so I'll try putting it underneath the photo, and that looks okay, but it's not what I end up going with. I decide that I need some plain paper to go behind that saying on the left hand side. So I choose this piece of paper which colour coordinates quite nicely, and I'll just cut out a frame for it so that that can go in between the front piece and the embossed piece on the side. And I'll also make an embossed piece that's a little bit wider and longer so that it blends in better with the photo and the saying and the banner that we've got going down the whole left hand side. So I think the framing, just with that little bit of paler colour in between, makes that stand out a lot better and blends well with the other page. I'm not sure about the bottom part of the tag at this stage, so I take that out, and before I decide what I'm going to do down the bottom there, I go round and ink all the edges of everything with the black ink. So that gets rid of the white core on everything, and when I come to start sticking down, I realise I haven't done what I said I would do on this piece, so I grab the ink and also do some highlighting around the edges on that and across the top, and I think that just helps highlight it a bit from the black behind it. So I've put some sticky on the back of the tag and then realised I don't want to put it on yet because I want to do this side banner and the photo, and I'll also put some thread through that tag before I stick it down. So this is a little bit of a jigsaw putting this banner together, and I need to do it in the right order, getting all the bits together with 3 pieces of black embossed paper. It was a bit tricky to make sure that I had the right piece in the right place. So then when it's all there, I just need to straighten things up a little bit because it needs to be straight, and then I'll put the thread through the tag part, and then I can stick that down onto the top. So while I'm doing that, I'll just remind you that this is a hop, and with the mini papers, a lot of people are doing 12 by 12 page layouts with mini papers, and that's always interesting to watch and see how they use the mini paper pads. So make sure you follow everybody through on the list that's down in the description box and leave them some love along the way. I'm sure they would love your comments and your thumbs up and even your subscriptions if you haven't subscribed to them already. So I'm just fraying the end of that cotton there, and then I'll nip around the outside with the black ink around the whole page, and that'll just help blend it in with what I've done around the individual segments, but also get rid of any stray bits of white that might be peeping out from behind. So then down the bottom, I've decided to leave the bottom of the tag out and put in 3 little journaling strips. And it just doesn't need a lot of explanation on this front title page, but I will just put some words on those 3 lines. So I will also go around the outside of those with the black ink before I stick them down, and I'll step them. So the first one is on the left at the top, and then the second one I'll line up with the right hand side of the photo, and that fills those 2 gaps. And the third one I'll line up with the edge of that background piece of paper, and I think that blends or carries on from the 2 up top, so just kind of links that piece with the bit underneath. And then I trimmed it a bit short and had to be a contortionist to get the last bit of black ink on the edge. Then Morty came and said hello very briefly while I was doing my journaling. And then I just want to bring a little bit more of that light purple colour in. So I'm using a sponge with royal ink to provide a little bit of a smudged background to where I'm going to stamp the years, which are part of the title or what this album is all about. So I'm putting on these numbers here. Now, because I need to use the 0 twice, I'll put it down once and then move it once I know how big that gap needs to be. And then I can put a little dash in it, use the black ink and stamp it on the top left. So that will fill up nicely that gap down the bottom when I've got this on the top left. and then I'll do the second set of numbers on the bottom right. Now I've done that, I can clean that off and take the 0 and put it onto the tiny stamp block so that I've got a good control, and we know it's going to fit in that gap because we measured it before we did the other bit. And then for the next section I can do that in 2 parts because the first bit is okay, and then I can just swap that 0 out for a 5. This alphabet set is called the pennant alphabet set, and it's a great size for this sort of thing, so I use it quite a lot. Now once I've got the years all stamped here, I quite like the way the smudge looks behind them, so I decide to bring a little bit in at the top as well, behind where the cotton is threaded through the tag. So you can see the dark smudges there where the adhesive has stuck to the side, but that's okay because we're just going to put the cotton back down in the same places, and that covers that up nicely. And I'll just fray those edges and spread them out a little bit. And then I've got some silver gems to dot around the place, and my stash of these is running low as Close to My Heart is closing down, so I haven't bought any new ones. I'm waiting until we get some supplies from our new company. So I'm using all of these supplies up and emptying that packet, which is always a good feeling, isn't it? So I've got the glitter gems on there, and that is that title page done. So thank you for joining me today and watching this come together. As you can see, it has its place. I'll just slot it in here for now, and I think I'll start to work through chronologically and get the other pages completed. Thanks for joining me. Happy crafting!